third meeting of the Bloomington Planning Commission is officially called to order. Can we please do roll call?
Mr. Stanzik?
Here.
Mr. Dannenberger? Mr. Dannenberger? Mr. Boyd?
Here.
Mr. Muelich? Mr. Krieger?
Here.
Mr. Moore?
Here.
Ms. McCann?
Here.
Ms. Motney?
Here.
And Chairperson Hayden.
Here.
Okay, we do have a quorum.
All right, thank you. At this time, Katie or Bob, do we have anyone that is in the audience for public comment? Okay, then we will skip past item 3 of public comments. We do not have any. And at this time, I'll make the statement. Oh, yep.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Megan. Did Mr. Muelich and Mr. Dannenberger, I think neither one of them answered, I heard on the roll.
Right, they're not in attendance, George.
Okay, so we have 8 at this point? Or 7?
Yes. 7, actually, and we're assuming Mr. Dannenberger will chime in here shortly.
Okay, I wasn't sure if I had heard about that. If you see him when he's on, let's get him on the record
Right.
as attending. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry.
All right, so this meeting is being held virtually via live stream. If a member of the public does dial in, they'll be asked to identify themselves and can speak during our public hearings on our regular agenda item. But we didn't receive any public comments which needed to be received 15 minutes before the start of the meeting. So at this time, I'll move to item 4, which is a review of the minutes of the August 26th meeting.
This is Justin. I have one correction. It shows me as absent.
Any other corrections?
This is Justin. I will motion to approve with that correction.
Second.
Can we please do a roll call on approve with the amendment?
Sure. Ms. Motney?
Yes.
Ms. McCann?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Boyd?
Yes.
Mr. Stanzik?
Yes.
And Chairperson Hayden.
Yes. All right, motion carries, minutes are adopted, which moves us to item 5, our regular agenda. So we will start with item A, which is PS-03-20, a public hearing, review, and action on an application submitted by Tentec Enterprises, which is requesting the approval of a preliminary plan for Hershey Grove subdivision.
Madam Chairman, as an employee of Tentec Enterprises, I'd like to indicate my intention to recuse myself from any consideration of this matter.
Noted. Thank you, Commissioner Stanzik. And we are, okay, we'll get through this one before we have to start worrying about quorum. So at this time, we will see a presentation from staff, and then we'll open up the public hearing. We're working on Katie's audio. We're getting technical assistance. Bob, I don't know if this is part of your duties to sing during silence. So maybe
It is
George.
not.
Can-
But thank you
maybe
for
this is-
inviting that opportunity.
No.
No?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Now it works. Thank you,
Okay.
Phil. Bob, did you want to say something?
No, I thought you said I had to sit. That isn't going to happen.
All right, you can see the screen too? Okay, great.
Yes.
Great. Staff is recommending in favor of the preliminary plan for the Hershey Grove subdivision. Here's kind of a picture of the remaining phase of this Brookridge apartments. There's the existing Brookridge apartments as well. The proposed development, so the subject property is part of the Hershey Grove subdivision, which includes a much larger area than this existing part, than the 5 acres that we're talking about. But the intention behind reinstating the preliminary plan is to allow for the development of these 5 acres on the screen. And those would be continued development of the existing apartments and condos. The property is zoned R3B, and the proposed use is allowed in the zoning district. The preliminary plan, so the entire Hershey Grove subdivision, I'm sorry, that is not, oops, the screen says 18 acres, that's not correct. But the entire Hershey Grove subdivision is outlined in orange on the aerial of the map, and you can see that it consists of different kind of subdivisions, so Brookridge Estates and Ireland Grove and Hershey Grove, and then the area that we are looking at is the Brookridge Apartments on the south side. We did receive a question about whether or not this proposed development will drain to the north to the detention basin, and it doesn't. It actually, everything drains to the south. So the picture on the screen kind of shows how the detention works for this Hershey Grove area. Here's a photo of the subject property. As I mentioned, it's undeveloped. It's about 5 acres, and the developer is proposing to continue to build this area out in phases. Just some surrounding uses, single-family residential to the north. It's vacant, unincorporated, kind of the drainage area to the south. And then the Brookridge Apartments are to the east, as well as there's a Brookridge commercial subdivision to the west. And so this commercial area serves the residents in this neighborhood. Looking at the comprehensive plan, this is a tier 1 infill development priority, and also encourages the development of additional housing stock for the benefit of Bloomington residents. Here's the infill redevelopment map. And then our future land use map also identifies this as high density residential, which is proposed. Looking at the standards in our subdivision ordinance, staff found the standards to be met. There are quite a few of them, so I don't intend to walk through each individual standard with you, but I can answer any questions if there are more specific questions about the standards. And staff is supporting the reinstatement of this subdivision. I can answer any questions that you have.
All right, who's got questions for Katie?
I've got some questions. Should be pretty quick though. I just couldn't read the plan well enough. So regarding that commercial area over there, about foot traffic over to it, is there going to be access to that from the east to get in there? Or would there be like a sidewalk around going out to Hamilton and up? Do you know what's contemplated as far as that's concerned?
There is sidewalk here along Hamilton where the screen is, and then in the development there's proposed sidewalk that would connect to this sidewalk, so residents could, come walk down, connect, and then walk up to the commercial area. There's also Constitution Trail behind here that connects to that sidewalk.
Okay. It doesn't look like there's sidewalk going north on Hershey, though. Like from Hamilton up Hershey to get to there, based on what I see.
It's hard, yeah, it is hard to see from the existing, the aerial. I think the developer could probably address that in their testimony as well.
Okay.
The site plan appears to be showing sidewalk.
Where are we talking about for sidewalk?
From north on Hershey here, where sorry. I believe Tyson, is that the area
Yeah.
you're talking about?
I
Yeah,
think
so
there
I'm
is
just-
sidewalk there.
Yeah, I should have gone out and looked. I didn't
I'm-
have time.
I'm quite certain there is. I've seen people jogging it.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that if we reference foot traffic in the finding of fact, that was just my concern. I want to make sure that it's actually something someone could get to with a stroller or a wheelchair, something like that kind of level of foot traffic. All right. And my other question is there going to be another outlet onto Hershey from this, or is everyone going to come in through that? I don't see a name for that road, but right by over on the right side by the Brookridge Height apartments, is that going to be where people would drive in to get to this?
It is. I had a different slide. It must have gotten out of order because I don't see it here. But there, all the circulation is internal, and this is Rudder Road, so everything kind of circles around. If you can see my mouse on the screen, circles around through the north and connects back into Rudder. So we would not want an additional curb cut onto Hershey.
It's too close to the
Because-
intersection.
Right, exactly. So all interior circulation. And there's a building that's already built here. Doesn't show up on the Google aerial, but that is existing. Where it says Brookridge Apartments, that's been built out. And then the traffic is interior to the development.
Okay. So, because if I scroll over east, if I go over east, there's like a alley road, ALEE road, coming off of Hamilton to get into the east part of this, but that would be not close to an intersection. That's right before Hamilton dead ends. So would that be the difference there, why that would be acceptable?
Right, so this main entrance right here.
Yeah, so there's another one over to the right of that.
Further, I see what you're, right here, that entrance right there. Exactly, that's further away from the intersection with Hershey.
Yeah.
And,
Okay.
yep.
Right. That was the only question I had.
Do you have any other questions for Katie?
I did mention briefly that we received an email with some questions about this. Megan, I'm not sure how you would like for us to introduce this as an exhibit or introduce it into the public hearing.
Let's make it part of public hearing, but can we do it before we ask the petitioner to speak so the petitioner can address the questions? George, you okay with that?
Yes, I was wondering if there's a copy that we can give to the petitioner.
So I did email this out right before the meeting, and I copied Mr. Fetter and Mr. Gastel on that. So they should have received a
Okay.
copy
Okay.
in their email. I don't know if they've had time to read it yet, but can you see the email on the screen? Or are you still looking at the PowerPoint?
Yep,
You can see it. Okay, great. So this came from a nearby resident, and they were just expressing concerns about noise pollution, and then had another question about the detention and whether or not this area would be served by the detention basin to the north, which is managed by the homeowners association. So I tried to address the detention question in the presentation. These apartments are actually drained to the south and do not go to the north. And then the question about the chiller plant, I would defer to the applicant.
Okay, thank you, Katie. All right, so do we have the petitioner on the line?
We do. Mr. Fetter is muted right now, so I think *6 will unmute him.
All right, so at this time, we'll open up the public
Okay,
hearing
I'm
for
here.
anyone who wishes to speak on behalf of the petitioner. So, Mr. Fetter, do you wish to speak at this time on behalf of the petitioner?
I am here.
All right, if you can please state your name and address for the commission, I'm going to swear you in to give your testimony.
David Fedor, 1 Brickyard Drive, Bloomington, Illinois.
Do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
I do.
All right, thank you. Please proceed.
I really don't have anything to add. I'd be glad to answer the questions. This is just a continuation of the current development. Will actually contain the last 3 buildings of this development that has been being built out for quite some time. We've added them gradually as we've seen a need for the units, and we are getting ready to do one of the last 3 buildings here. With regards to noise pollution, I'm not quite sure what the resident is asking about. It's not really going to be any different than any of the other buildings in the property. It's just going to be another residential section of the multifamily development. All 3 buildings we're contemplating will be similar to the buildings we currently have. There won't be anything unusual about it. And I'm not sure about the question. What was the question about the chiller? And I'm sorry, Katie, I did not get an email from you. I've been looking in my inbox and even my spam, and I'm not finding one. So what was the question about the chiller?
Katie's sharing her screen again to pull up the email. Yeah, and also just can we note that John has joined the meeting?
I was here at 4:06. Sorry, I was running a little bit late today, but if anyone's keeping record, it was 4:06 I joined.
Thank you. Mr. Fetter, can you see Katie's screen in the meeting?
I can.
Okay.
I don't understand what he's talking about with regards to the existing chiller plant. There is no chiller plant at this location. A chiller is usually an HVAC system that's used on a large commercial building. These apartments all have individual residential type HVAC systems, forced air. There won't be a chiller. There hasn't been, and there isn't intended to be one. I'm not sure what he's hearing, unless it's coming from State Farm Corporate South, which probably does have a chiller, but we certainly don't.
Mr. Fetter, is there anything else you'd want the commission to know, or anything else you'd like to address? Otherwise, I think you've addressed the questions in the email.
No, I don't think I have anything to add. And if there are any other questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Hi, this is Tyson. I might have missed it, or maybe we didn't address it, about the name of the subdivision, about it being a Hershey versus Brookridge.
Well, Hershey Grove Subdivision was the original name for the entire parcel that included the residential areas to the north and this multifamily section as well. The apartment project itself, its name is Brookridge Apartments.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any other questions for the petitioner? All right, thank you, Mr. Federer.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone on the line that wishes to speak in opposition to the petition?
We did not have anybody register to speak in opposition. We do have, I believe it's probably Jeff Gastel with Farnsworth Group, and I'm trying to allow him to talk, but I'm getting this message that his version of, oh, there we go. All right, so now if he wanted to speak, it looks like he's muted, so he would have to hit *6, but otherwise there was nobody else that registered for this item.
All right, is there anyone else who wishes to speak from the public about PS-03-20? All right, then at this time, I'm going to close the public hearing, open it up for discussion amongst the commission and discussion of, we need a couple motions, so findings of fact, and then the preliminary plan adoption.
This is Tyson again. I just wanted to ask David the same question I had about the access to that commercial area. Is there going to be connectivity to the Brookridge Shopping Center from the east, or would people be walking out Hamilton and then up to get into that center?
Megan, are you going to be reopening? We're going to be reopening for evidence?
Oh, I don't get to ask him.
Yeah,
I'm
I
sorry.
think Tyson was trying to ask David, who has recused himself, but figuring maybe
No, I'm
David.
sorry. I was
Federer
asked a
stands it.
developer. You know what? It's not important. It's fine. It won't affect my vote. I'm just curious. So don't worry about it.
Yep. David Stanzik, do you know that answer? And I don't know if it's within
No.
your state or
Wrong,
why.
David.
It was supposed to be David Federer.
Yep, understand that. Just didn't know if maybe he knew and could answer that for Tyson. He can't talk. Okay, never mind. All right.
So you had asked on a motion for findings of fact?
Yep, so do I have anyone that wants to establish a finding of fact and adopt all of the standards?
I'd be happy to motion that we accept the standards. And you can clean me up on that if I've said it wrong.
Yep. Thank you, Commissioner Motney. George, do you want to supply any wording, and she can wordsmith her motion a little bit, and we'll have some discussion on that one.
Sure, there's a motion then to accept the findings of fact as presented in the staff report.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll second that. It's Tyson.
Mr. Dannenberger?
In favor.
Mr. Boyd?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. McCann?
Yes.
Ms. Motney?
Yes.
And Chairperson Hayden?
Yes. All right, that motion carries. Then we need a second motion to recommend City Council approves the preliminary plan for the Hershey Grove Subdivision amended preliminary plan.
So move.
I didn't see who did that. I'm sorry.
Mr. Krieger.
Mr. Krieger. I'm sorry.
Do we have a second?
Here, John Dannenberger.
Ms. McCann? Oh, I'm sorry. Is there any discussion? Ms. McCann?
Yes.
Ms. Motney?
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberger?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Boyd?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
And Chairperson Hayden.
Yes.
That
That
motion
motion-
did pass.
Thank you, Mr. Mark.
Chairperson Hayden, could I recommend, since we might run out of time, could we consider going to the items D and E? Seems like they might be a little quicker, and we can maybe get those knocked out. I don't know if
Yeah.
we need a motion for that or something, or but just
Yeah,
an idea I had.
I have a feeling though that B has someone on the phone to talk to us that has a petitioner on the phone, where C and D, they're important, but I think that's from the city. So I hear you, but I'm gonna push back and think that I think the order is appropriate.
Okay.
What was your reasoning on that one?
Just if we could make sure to get those done if we run out of time, because people have to leave and we lose quorum, that we could make sure to get those done so staff can continue to move on. But I understand your reasoning. That's fine.
Yep. Okay. So I'm going to say B and C has the same petitioner. And want to make sure that we get something where we've got a petitioner. So I'm going to move us to B, which is item Z-17-20, which is a public hearing, review, and action on an application from Eastlake LLC to rezone the southeast portion of parcel 22-09-476-002 from P2 public lands and institutions to R2 mixed residence district. So at this time, we'll see a presentation from staff.
Okay, can you, screen should be shared. Staff is recommending in favor of the rezoning, the zoning map amendment, sorry, it's a 1 acre portion of this 10-acre lot located in the Grove subdivision. The current zoning is P2, which is public lands and institutions, and the applicant is requesting to rezone to R2. Here's a photo of the area. This is annexed in the city. It is subject to an annexation agreement that is still valid, and the land has been undeveloped. The Grove subdivision is located on Bloomington's east side. Here's kind of a larger aerial of the subdivision, and the subject property is outlined in yellow, looking at where the zoning would occur. And just zooming in on that to give you a better idea at the zoning map as well. The P2 district, the intention of the P2 district is to allow for certain public uses like churches, nonprofits, daycare centers, government uses. The R2 mixed residence district is primarily single and two-family homes. It allows for a density of up to 13 units per acre, and is primarily residential. There are a few other uses like a daycare center that might be allowed with a special use permit, but it's primarily residential. Just surrounding uses and zoning to the north, we have single family homes. To the south is undeveloped farm. It's actually unincorporated land. West of here is Benjamin Elementary School, and then east of here is cornfield and also undeveloped land. So looking at the comprehensive plan, this property is identified as a Tier 1 infill redevelopment priority, and it's also seen as an emerging area. And the future land use map suggests that it should be developed with low-density residential. They're just the different pages from the plan. The subject property is circled in red out here. And then also on the future land use map as well, it's identified as low-density residential. Looking at the zoning map amendment, there are a number of standards that the Planning Commission can use to guide their decision. In short, because this area is surrounded by other residential uses, staff is supporting this change. As we'll talk about with the next case, the property will not be able to take access from Ireland Grove Road or 2100 North North 2100 East Road, it will have to take access from the subdivision. And so a use in the P2 district, such as, a school or a daycare center, or even, a government use or a church, could generate a lot of foot traffic that could impact the quality of life of the other homes and other residences nearby. So the zoning change to residential makes it consistent and will actually encourage the development of a single family home, which will then be compatible with the other uses nearby. So that is why we are supporting this request, and I can answer any questions you might have pertaining to the staff report.
Katie, is there a reason they didn't just want to do that whole orange block as a R1B?
I believe it has to do with the proposed density. The R2, they could have done R1B. R1B has a little bit larger lot size, that as a minimum lot size, and so it wouldn't necessarily allow them to yield the same quantity of homes, which for the developer would then make this feasible. So R1B could have done that for the entire 10 acres, but I believe they wanted to maintain a certain level of density to make the numbers work. So the R2 is existing. It was rezoned R2 when it was annexed, the property north. It was annexed, I believe, in 2006. And so this would just be consistent with that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Katie? If not, I'll open up the public hearing portion. And I think we have the petitioner on the line. That Farnsworth group.
We are actually, just to allow you all to be aware, we indicated our interest. This is Elizabeth Megley. I'm the attorney for the petitioner. We indicated our interest in being part of this as a part of a couple of numbers, but we are all located in the same place. So I'm here with Neil Finland, part of the engineer, and Tom Armstrong, who is part of the developer group. With respect to the petition for rezoning, I would echo the remarks by Ms. Simpson regarding the appropriateness of this rezoning. I think it really does actually reduce the density and is more consistent with the adjoining uses that were contemplated and have been contemplated for this land for quite some time. Obviously, the contemplation that it might be utilized for a daycare center or otherwise did not come to fruition. And that property has sat there vacant since 2006. So we feel like this would be a good use of the property going forward that would be consistent with the neighborhood.
All right, thank you, Ms. Megley. George, I didn't get her sworn in. Do you want me to swear her in retroactively on her testimony?
I think she was really, if anything, just kind of making an argument and underlining some points that were made in the staff report by Ms. Simpson. I think if there are questions for either Ms. Megley or the three folks that she spoke about, they should be sworn in if they're going to be answering questions or testifying to facts. I think we're okay at this point.
Okay, thank you, George. Ms. Megley and group, so Neil and Tom, if you guys have testimony that you'd like to give, if you want to speak up and I'll swear you in, you can give testimony. Otherwise, just kind of reading from the group if anyone's going to have questions. If anyone just wants to give me a wave if you have questions.
Sure, Neil Finland here, and really I'm just here to answer questions, and it may not pertain to this zoning issue. They may follow later with the next case.
Yep, okay. I didn't get a nod from anyone that they had questions, so if you guys don't have testimony, that's fine. And we don't have anyone on the line that wishes to speak in opposition to the petition. Yep, all right, so at this time, I'm going to close the public hearing, open it up for motions and discussion amongst the commission. So for this one, staff is just asking for an approval of the rezoning.
I'm sorry, we will still need to establish a findings though, so I should have included that in my report.
Thanks, Katie. Okay, so two motions. We need a finding of facts and then a motion on the zoning.
I'll make a motion to approve the finding of facts as presented.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Dannenberger,
Yes.
Mr. Boyd,
Yes.
Mr. Krieger,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Ms. McCann,
Yes.
Ms. Motney,
Yes.
Mr. Stanzik,
Yes.
and Chairperson Hayden.
Yes. All right, motion carries. Thank you. So the next one would be the actual motion on the zoning.
This is Justin. I'll motion that we approve the rezone the southeast portion of parcel 22-09-476-002 from P2 public lands to R2 mixed residential.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Stanzik,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberger,
Yes.
Mr. Boyd,
Yes.
Mr. Krieger,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Ms. McCann,
Yes.
Ms. Motney,
Yes.
and Chairperson Hayden.
Yes.
That
All right.
motion passed.
Thank you. So that concludes that item of our agenda, and we'll move us to C, which is PS-04-20, a public hearing, review, and action on a petition submitted by Eastlake LLC, requesting the approval of a revision to the previously approved The Grove on Kickapoo Creek First Amended Preliminary Plan for a subdivision of the property located north of Ireland Grove Road and west of North 2100 East Road, adjacent to Benjamin Elementary School. So the same parcel that we were just discussing. So we'll see a presentation from staff, and then we can hear from the petitioners.
Thank you, Megan. Staff is recommending in favor of the amended preliminary plan for the Grove on Kickapoo Creek subdivision. Subject property. This is now we're talking about 10 acres. So previously it was the southern quarter, but we're addressing the entire 10 acres at the moment. Just another view of the property. This is from Benjamin Elementary School from their basketball courts. There's a trail here that surrounds the property that I'll discuss. This is a track. This is a track that the students use to run the mile and all of that fun stuff. So I'll address that in just a second, but just wanted to give you this view as if you were standing at the school. The subject property is a portion of the Grove subdivision. It's 10 acres. There's just another kind of zoomed in aerial. This aerial is a little dated. It doesn't show the track that I was mentioning, but the track has been added and recently here as well. So the property is zoned R2, allows up to 13 units per acre, primarily single family and some two-family homes. This is the previously approved preliminary plan. The area in yellow is the subdivision that's been built out. You can see the subdivision was intended to be much larger than what's been built at the moment. And then zooming in on the previously approved plan, originally the city was considering oversizing some infrastructure, specifically water mains along Ireland Grove Road. 20-inch water main was proposed and a 16-inch water main. So the revised preliminary plan that you're considering tonight changes that. So it's 10 acres, primarily single-family residential homes. The plan in front of you shows this bottom corner, which we just discussed, which is about 1 acre, which would be homes. single-family homes rather than a daycare center. There is no access allowed here on Island Grove Road or North 2100 East Road because of the intersection. So all access comes from Fletcher Drive, or the proposed Fletcher Drive here. And then there's internal circulation to this area. The staff has been working, we've been going back and forth with the developer and their engineers and to address some of these comments. So one thing that the developer was able to accommodate was this access to the school here. This is a 10-foot wide path that will also serve as a easement for infrastructure. But that path then provides a safe route for students who live in this neighborhood to connect to that track that we mentioned, so they can get to school. And the path also serves a dual function because it provides a secondary entrance for emergency vehicles should this Fletcher Drive ever be closed. A fire truck or EMS could drive on the school's property, on the track, and into the neighborhood that way if needed. So we feel that's a nice addition to the area that helps promote, safe circulation for students. And the developer is proposing public streets. They are shown with 2 sidewalks, 1 on each side and 5 foot wide. As I mentioned, there were some changes to the infrastructure as well. So rather than a 20-inch water main, the developer is proposing an 8-inch, which is our minimum. This would connect here along the school property and then circle back and connect into the school's water loop here. So that way, the stagnant water mains kind of can affect the quality of the water. So by looping it back into the other system, it helps improve the quality and maintain quality water. The sewer system here would be public. It's also shown as our minimum standards and would connect here. And as I mentioned, that outlot serves as an easement for both the water and also the sewer, and then storm sewer as well. So the staff is recommending, subject property, surrounding uses, single family homes. I will let the developer speak a little bit more to the size of the lots and the type of house that they intend to build on these lots. We did receive an email with some questions about that, so I'll pull that up in just a second. But just surrounding uses, similar. This is a tier 1 infill redevelopment priority because it is subject to an existing annexation agreement. It is served by city services. It's already within the corporate limits. That's why it's identified as tier 1 in the comp plan. And then low density residential. We looked at the same purpose and intention of the subdivision that we used in the previous case, the same standards. Staff found the standards to be met. This area is served by the Grove Park. There's schools out here. It has access to city infrastructure. And in fact, the revision to the infrastructure, part of the controversy with the Grove subdivision was the oversizing of the infrastructure. And so the proposed amendment to this preliminary plan that shows an 8-inch water main rather than a 20 or a 16-inch changes what the city would have had to contribute to this, because per the original agreement, the city was responsible for paying for the cost of oversizing the infrastructure. So since there's no oversizing, there would be no cost to the city for that. And I can answer any questions you may have about that, but the staff is recommending in favor, and I'm happy to address your questions. Oh, and sorry, let me pull up that email too while we're.
Does anyone have any questions for Katie? And then I think we'll do the email the same way as part of the public hearing.
Sounds good.
All right, Katie, it doesn't look like we have any questions, so we'll let you enter in that email as our questions, and then we'll have the petitioner swear in.
Okay, we received an email from a nearby resident. They had questions about the proposed structures, the type of housing that would be constructed and how many families would live there, and then additional costs to the city in terms of sewer and water. So the developer is on the phone and they can answer that as well.
All right. At this time, do we have anyone who wishes to speak on behalf of the petitioner?
Yes.
Can I please get you to state your name and address for the commission, then I'll swear you in.
Okay, there we go. Sorry.
This is Elizabeth Megley. I'm happy to be sworn in, but also think more evidence may be presented by Neil Finland, the engineer, or through Tom Armstrong, the representative of the developer. But I am happy to be sworn in. I can answer a portion of those questions and offer some additional details regarding the Planning Commission. It's up to whatever the commission would prefer, whether they would prefer I be sworn in or not.
Yep, I would say that we have no preference, but perhaps starting with the developer, I think that the questions are maybe in that vein. So maybe we could start with Tom.
We would just start, I suppose, by responding to those questions that you posed.
Elizabeth, since it will be testifying to facts, why don't you be sworn in? That's what we've been doing for facts.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you.
Ms. Megley, do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
I do.
All right, thank you. Please proceed.
So with respect to the first question, I'm not exactly sure what the individual is really trying to discern, but the proposed structure would be residential dwellings, single-family residential dwellings, would be anticipated on this 10-acre parcel. In terms of how many persons would the structure allow, I believe, and Neil, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we're anticipating single-family homes, approximately 30, correct?
Yeah, so population density,
Sorry,
2 to 3.
Sorry to interrupt, Neil. We're going to have to get you sworn in too, please.
Oh, sure, you bet.
Can you please state name and address, and then we'll do the swearing in.
You bet. Neil Finland, 2709 McGraw Drive, Farnsworth Group.
Do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
I do.
All right, thank you. Please proceed.
So single-family homes, as Elizabeth mentioned, and I think, population density of a home of this size is about 2.5. I know with our park fees, that's about where we're at. That's times 33 dwellings. So, that I knew I was needing a calculator. 80 to 90 people, population, all total.
Then in terms of the final question regarding the sewage and water infrastructure, I can respond to that. Obviously, Katie has responded to that in part as well. As a part of this second amended preliminary plan, we're not anticipating any oversizing by the city. And in fact, in part, this subdivision should actually help the existing sewage pump station, which was really intended to carry quite a bit of additional load than what it currently carries. And so adding these additional homes will allow there to be greater flow through those tile that are sitting there, and that pump station will actually be utilized as it was intended to than as it currently is. But there is no, presently there would be no cost to the city for oversizing.
Megan, you're on mute.
Thank you, Tyson. Ms. Megley, Mr. Finland, is there anything else that you'd like to present or address to the commission? Otherwise, I'll open it up and let them ask you some questions.
No, just briefly, though, I guess I would like to say this, and I certainly mean this. Appreciate staff's involvement, their timely reviews of the project. As Katie had mentioned, many of these items have been resolved in advance. Certainly that I'd attribute that to the cooperative spirit that we've seen from the staff to get where we are today and being able to resolve those concerns. The other thing I thought I'd make mention of as well is I met with the Unit 5 superintendent, her facilities director, and the Unit 5 attorney to advise them of, our intentions. This has certainly been a collaborative effort with Unit 5. The developers, by the way, had donated 10 of the 15 acres that are present for the Benjamin Elementary School and made arrangements for the other 5 acres from Mrs. Dorothy Benjamin. So this kind of completes this corner of the world, all in accordance with really what Unit 5 had hoped for and also what they're aware of today. So anyway, it's been a good process and happy to answer any questions. So. In addition, on behalf of the developer, I would indicate a couple of things. Obviously, there are questions about oversizing, and there have been ongoing questions about the cost of additional growth here. Obviously, this is within the city limits, and I think really does show something that we're all quite happy to see, which is growth in terms of development. For quite a while, there was really no intention to move forward in building additional homes because there just wasn't the market. Thankfully, market is now showing us that there actually is a need for additional single-family homes. And this subdivision has been quite popular. People have been quite happy who live there because it's become a type of community with the school being nearby. So it's something that the developers really happy to see moving forward and think it will really be beneficial. Obviously, we also get the benefit, additional workforce who has jobs as a part of this. Additional tap-on fees and inspection fees, sales tax that hopefully new buyers bring to the community as a result of buying homes here. I think it's worthwhile to note that presently there's only one lot in this subdivision that is not already accounted for. And so the developer really is in need of getting additional lots because they continue to get calls from individuals who are interested in buying in this community.
All right, thank you, Ms. Megley, and thank you, Mr. Finland. Does anyone have any questions for the petitioners?
Yeah, I have a question. This is Tyson for those of you on the phone. Have you calculated the total approximate cost of all the infrastructure that's going to be built for this, taking into account roads? I know the sewers aren't being oversized, but there still are sewers being built, sidewalks. Do you have that number?
Yes, I do. And I'm looking that up as we speak. It is just past $1 million.
All right. So that's $1 million for, you said, approximately 100 people. So $100,000 per person.
Well, obviously, and I can let Mr. Finland respond to this as well. Well, obviously, that would be the direct mass allocation. What it serves is much greater because it provides an addition for future development as well. And so that 100,000 per person is probably not exactly what ultimately ends up being the benefit per person in the subdivision.
Yep. And I would just also point out, just to clarify, that is the upfront cost, right? That's not taking into account the present value of any maintenance costs or reworking of those streets whenever they degrade. That wouldn't be part of your calculation, correct?
It is not.
Okay, thank you.
I will add one item that was pending. We do owe you street names. We have street names that have been proposed, and we will, some of which are in conflict with some existing, and we do owe you street names.
Oh, sorry, this is Tyson again. I do have one more question for you. The approximate price point for these houses, do you have a range for that you're considering?
It's going to be best for the developer. We've talked about that, of course, to prepare for the meeting, and this might be a good time to swear Tom in, for that testimony.
Mr. Armstrong, can we get your name and address, please?
Tom Armstrong, 1816 Fitzer, Normal, Illinois.
Do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Please proceed.
So the question is what price point, correct? It is going to be hopefully in the 280 range up to 300, possibly going higher. Still trying to maintain the same style and square footage as what's previous to already there.
Do we have any other questions for the petitioners? All right. And we don't have anyone else on the line that wishes to speak in opposition. So petitioners, if you don't have any other testimony, then I'm going to close the public hearing.
Thank you.
None for me. Thank you.
All right. Thanks to the three of you for your time. At this time, I'm going to close the public hearing and we'll open it up to the commission for discussion and to talk through motions. So again, looking for two motions establishing the findings of fact and then approving the preliminary plan.
I move we accept the findings of fact.
This is Justin. I'll second that.
Any discussion on that?
So I think I would offer on finding of fact A, refers to the general welfare of the city. The back of the envelope calculation we just went through was that each one of these houses would have about 2.5 people in it. Each person would be responsible for about $100,000 of infrastructure. So each house would be about $250,000. That's about the cost of the house. So for each one of these houses, we're building as much infrastructure as the value of the house is. So I am hesitant to say that that is good for the general welfare of the city. So I'm going to vote against it for that reason.
Any other responses to Tyson or comments to that point? And perhaps it would be helpful for the public record to hear if you do plan to vote yes or no, what your reasoning would be.
I'm going to vote. Oh, sorry. Are you talking to me or other people?
I think unless you have other things, I think we have your point of view.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought
But
you were addressing me.
would like to hear maybe anything in complement to that or in opposition to that for the public record.
Yeah, that's why I was confused. I thought I mentioned
I think don't we have a motion to accept the findings of fact as presented by staff in a second?
Yes.
And I think in a way I could tell you, and I don't want to put words in Mr. Moore's mouth, but so I think he's opposing that motion because he wants a finding on a single fact that's different. So maybe if we could couch the discussion maybe along those lines first, and then as to a vote on the petition second. So at this point, we're looking at a motion whether to accept the findings as presented by staff, and there's a second. That's my understanding.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that procedurally. I just have a feeling that Tyson's going to be the only one that's going to vote no against that motion, but wanted to get kind of a sense if anyone else was saying no.
George, I have a question. Is this one of those situations where we need to make a favorable finding on all of the standards, or is that not the case?
I don't think that is the case. I think it's kind of a weighing of standards. I don't see it as the same, for example, as a variance where every single factor needs to be met. I think it's more like the LaSalle factors.
I would agree with that, George.
Can I suggest Tyson make an amendment to the motion?
It's not his motion. There's a motion on the floor.
I mean, I didn't mean to entirely quell the discussion about whether factor one should be considered separately, or about factor one. I was just pointing out procedurally that that's where we were at. We were, with respect to the
Yeah, I don't want to, that's a good point, George. I don't want to lose this discussion in procedure. I'd rather figure out the procedure in a second, but I do want to get kind of a pull from the group of a reaction to Tyson's comment on the general welfare to the city. And I think hearing that will let us know if we should just proceed with this motion or get an amended motion.
So, Megan, am I allowed to ask Tyson a question about his comment?
Yep.
Tyson, as you're looking at that, the relative investment relative to the return, over what time horizon are you considering that?
Well, I'd be looking at just the initial upfront cost of it. And then as you look as time plays out, we don't have the number available about how much should be put aside every year to fund the maintenance and eventual replacement of these infrastructures. The city and the developer don't have a practice of calculating that number. So I would assume that there would need to be additional money though put aside every year in order to fund that upcoming expense. So I was just doing a ballpark figure based on the initial cost versus the cost of the house. That challenges the idea that this kind of growth is a benefit to the city.
I guess, no, I appreciate that. It seems like what I'm hearing you say, though, is that over a longer time horizon, perhaps that might not be the case.
Over a longer time period, there would be more expenses that the city would need to have on the roads. This is the situation in our city right now, why our roads are so bad, is because sufficient money isn't put aside to fund them.
Thank you for sharing your perspective. Thank you, Megan.
Thank you, Ms. Bonnie. Does anyone else have any comments or reaction to that?
This is Justin. I can appreciate what Tyson's saying as well. I do not want to see us not pass this today, but I would be comfortable with removing that from the findings of fact.
Anyone else? So Justin, I'm of the same mind as you. So then procedurally, I think whoever made the motion, my request would be that you'd amend the motion to adopt the findings of fact with the exception of A, that we don't find that the standard is met on A. And
It's
then
my motion and I'll so amend it.
I will second that as well.
Any discussion on that before we roll call?
Okay, Mr. Dannenberger,
Yes.
Mr. Boyd,
Yes.
Mr. Krieger,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Ms. McCann,
Yes.
Ms. Montney,
Yes.
Mr. Stancic,
Yes.
and Chairperson Hayden.
Yes. That carries. So then the next piece would be an approval of the preliminary plan to send to council. And if you're looking at the packet, it does state that that's conditional upon amending the street name prior to it seeing council. And I do believe the petitioner was able to speak to that they'll be able to meet that condition.
I would move that we recommend this to the city council with that understanding.
I will
Justin.
second.
I'm sorry, I missed that one.
This is Tom Krieger, and I will second.
Thank you, Tom.
Any discussion on that? All right,
I do just want to explain my vote on this. I will be voting yes, but I do so because I think the standards are being met in such a way that in my role as a planning commissioner, I should vote for it because we should plot standards. I think it's unfortunate that we haven't learned our lessons and continue to build houses in this way. They're not developed in a manner that's financially sustainable. They're a drain on the city. The cost of the infrastructure is greater than the income that we get from it. And they're also dangerous with very few roads that go in and out of them, and having slow fire response times. So I hope that we don't continue to do this anymore.
Thank you, Tyson. I think it's important that that perspective is on the public record. On a lighter note, I used to live in the Grove, just moved out of it, and I hope that the city again reconsiders that right turn lane off of Ireland Grove onto Towanda Barnes, because that light is the worst. So adding 100 more people back there, I hope that the city thinks about that again. I will still be voting yes.
Call the roll.
Yes, please.
Ms. Motney,
Yes.
Ms. McCann,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Krieger,
Yes.
Mr. Boyd,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberger,
Yes.
Mr. Stanczyk,
Yes.
and Chairperson Hayden.
Yes.
That motion passes.
Thank you, folks. Thank you.
Thank you, petitioners. All right, that moves us. Tom, did you need to leave? Or have you missed your meeting?
I've got a little bit more time.
All right, then we'll keep rolling. So we'll go to item D, Z-19-20, public hearing, review, and action on an application from the Bloomington City Council for a text amendment to Chapter 44 of the Bloomington City Code that will change the name and references of the Community Development Department to the Economic and Community Development Department. Katie?
Thank you. I'll be very quick. This text amendment is pretty straightforward. Staff is recommending in favor. On August 12th, the City Council passed an ordinance that amended the community development name throughout the rest of the city code, and directed us to hold this public hearing to amend the name in the zoning ordinance, which requires public hearing with the Planning Commission. The Economic Development Department and the Community Development Department have been consolidated into one department. And I can answer any questions you have.
Katie, this is just more of a housekeeping thing, isn't it? Is that correct?
It is. There's no other changes to the text that are proposed. It's just going in and adding economic development in front of community.
Okay, thank you.
This is Tyson. I move that we recommend to City Council that we approve an ordinance.
I think I've got to close the,
Oh, sorry.
I've got to go through but thank you. Does anyone else have any questions for Katie? All right, do we have anyone that wishes to speak in favor or opposition of this matter?
No, nobody registered.
All right, then at this time I will close the public hearing and open it up for discussion and a motion amongst the commission.
Now I will move that, Katie took my words down. Darn it. Now I move that Planning Commission recommend that we approve the text amendment as presented.
I'll second.
Any
Is that
discussion?
Megan?
Yes. All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Stanczyk,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberger,
Yes.
Mr. Boyd,
Yes.
Mr. Krieger,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Ms. McCann,
Yes.
Ms. Motney,
Yes.
and Chairperson Hayden.
Yes. That motion carries. All right, that moves us to item E, which is a presentation, discussion, and action on a motion supporting the City of Bloomington's ITEP grant application for a southeast extension of the Constitution Trail, Lafayette to Hamilton. So I'll turn it over to you.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Craig Schunkweiler, newly minted city engineer. And I'm here to speak about a grant opportunity that we intend to seek here this fall. Talking about the Constitution Trail, the extension of it from Lafayette Street to Hamilton Road. So what is ITEP? ITEP is an Illinois Transportation Enhancement Program grant that is administered by the Illinois Department of Transportation. It's a grant reimbursement program that focuses on transportation components, not recreational projects. Its intent is to expand the travel choices by going beyond traditional accommodations for cars, trucks, and transit. There's a scoring process that the DOT uses. I won't get into the details of that, but basically there's a community factor. This is the first time they've done that. The grant is like an 80-20 split, so 80% federal with up to 20% local share. It could be 10% local share, it could be 0% local share. It really depends upon the community score component, which I'll talk about later on. The project scope here, as you can see on the map, is to go from Lafayette. Let me see if I can get my pointer to work here, which is up here on the north end, go south along Easy Street under Veterans Parkway, over along the west side of the railroad track to Bunn, go straight south on Bunn to Hamilton Road. When we look at barriers to folks that walk and bike, veterans certainly poses a significant one. There are no sidewalks or amenities, bicycle amenities on Bunn Street. There is an existing box culvert or bridge at Bunn that goes under Veterans that's fairly tight. There's no way to put sidewalks through there. This path would allow folks basically to get from the south and north parts of directly adjacent to Veterans Parkway. This project will complete two high priority sections. One section being the portion from Lincoln to Bunn. And actually, I'll back up a second. The section from Lincoln to Lafayette, that will be a local share project that we intend to put in the upcoming capital improvement plan. So, and then it'll also complete this section from Bunn down to Hamilton. The project location here is shown on the map. Again, the section right here where the pointer's at, that would be a local project, but we're looking to get funding for this portion in red. The connection to the comprehensive plan is basically, one of the goals is a safe and efficient off-road bicycle trails, and its expansion of those trails. So again, I'm not going to get into reading this in the interest of time, but and I presume that you folks are extremely versed in the comp plan, but this does have a connection to the comp plan. As I mentioned before, community score, it's based upon census tracts. And what they look at is the tax per capita, the population, the percent below poverty, and the medium household. And there's a equation for that. In essence, this one scores at 58.5. We would need to at least score a 52 to be eligible. I guess that's about all I got to say with that one. Show you some pictures here. So this is looking at Lafayette South. All of these pictures will be moving from north to south down to Hamilton. The path would be, we have to figure out the connection, but basically come across Lafayette with the goal would be to get up in this flat space up in here, which the city does have existing right-of-way public land for So the path would be up here and within these maze of poles, and snake through and down to Veterans Parkway. So the path would come into this zone through here and head. The idea would be to head, actually there's a span here, I'll show you in a minute, but cut across Easy Street. Easy Street is a dead end, low volume street. This is looking at the Veterans Parkway Bridge. There's an unused span here. So we'll either likely come through here, or actually this one's unused. And that's part of a study that we would have to do to determine the exact location. I will note there are some concerns expressed in the Transportation Commission about safety concerns within this area. We are going to put lighting into the grant application and the potential for security cameras. This is along the railroad tracks. The railroad tracks are to the left of the picture there. There's a grove of trees. The path would be kind of along this zone right through here. And Bunn Street is in the foreground. So Bunn Street is on the left here. We would go due south in front of this house. We have some challenges that we have to study with this particular location, but that would be all handled with what we call a phase 1 study, where we would be retaining an engineering consultant to help guide us through that process. This is Avenue A, which is a private road into the mobile home park. There's a nice slot here between the power poles and the trees that I'll show you as we move due south that would provide a nice location for the path. At approximately Avenue A and due south, there is an existing force main that Benward has that we would be over the top of that encumbered land. This would be that kind of space for the multi-use path. I would note that the bicycle master plan had showed paved shoulders at this location, but anytime that we're able to separate traffic or pedestrians and bicyclists from traffic, we view that as a good thing. I would also note that to the left is a fairly high industrial area that there's a fair amount of large vehicles that enter and exit out of that area. Moving further south here, again, that's the zone right directly in front of you that we would place the path. And then this is Hamilton Road intersection. This location will be rebuilt here in the near future with the Hamilton Road project, which will make a nice east-west connection from the existing trail on the west over to Morrissey on the east. And then what you see here will be rebuilt with curb and gutter and storm sewer. And then the path would be on the right of the picture there, and connect up to the newly built path on Hamilton Road. I want to thank you for your time. Wondered if you folks had any questions. Let's see if I can stop the share.
It's a great presentation. Thanks for the pictures. It really helped.
Craig, I have a question. This is John Dannenberger. I'm looking at the map that was sent earlier.
Yes.
And I'm just looking for a little confirmation. I love the pictures. I ride out there quite a bit, so I kind of know the area. The pictures were great to see again. Just to confirm here, is the only street that the path would be crossing, like cross traffic like it does on the north end of the trail, would that just be Easy Street?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Craig, just procedurally, are you aware in the past if we've had some problem areas that we would have to address and bring in an engineering consulting team? Is that how we would have handled that in the past? And is that pretty typical as we expand the trail, that we have one or two areas that are, it's not a perfect path. We've got to do something creative there.
Yeah, we have a plan, the best laid plan, and then things are pieced together through time. And you see in this particular location, we have a gap. and we're looking to close that gap. And we do outsource our work if we can with an engineering consultant, because there's a lot of hoops that we have to go through with a phase 1 study. We have to do environmental clearances. We have to hold public hearings. We have to look at defining the exact location of everything. Yeah, there's always challenges to these type of projects. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did.
Okay.
And I just want to say that I appreciate that you coming in after Kevin, that we've kept this base level of voice. It's very soothing.
Well, thank you.
Just to educate myself here, when a plan like this has some degree of mystery in it in terms of truly what the investment is, and then as you think about the known need to retain an outside consultant, on average, how much are we paying for consulting engagement like that?
Well, one rule of thumb would be, okay, backing up, we look at different phases. A phase 1 would be a preliminary engineering analysis. Phase 2 would be plans, specs, and estimates. Phase 3 would be construction oversight. So rule of thumb wise, it can be, and it depends based upon the economies of scale, meaning that the much larger the project is, the percent of construction goes down. But that can be anywhere from, let's say, 15% up to 30% of the construction cost. So if you have, I mean, you can do the math there, but right now we're still working through the estimate on this project, but we're looking at about a little over a $1.5 million project.
So, and then on top of that, that range, which is the add-on for the external help?
Yes, yes. So I came from a community, I worked for Urbana for 14 years, and we did a lot of work in-house, and we had a smaller crew, obviously, than Bloomington. But I can tell you that in my time of doing engineering, it's becoming more and more common to go out-house. It takes a unique set of skills to do work in-house. It also, I can tell you, coming on board here, we have probably 30 active projects of various sizes. So, to get the best efficiency, it's usually where we out-house work. We can do it in-house, but when you do it in-house, you have to dedicate time. And, I think work-life balance is important for folks anymore. So, if we, and the other thing that's changed, I'll be honest, is the requirements, the procedural things that we have to jump through, the hoops have ramped up. In the last 5 years, we have to look for environmental clearances that we didn't have to do before. There's database searches that you have to pay to get into those databases. The consultants have those access. The city doesn't have access to that. So there's just a lot of hoops that have to go through, and consultants that we select have those expertise to do that.
Well, I'm just reflecting on the conversation earlier and Tyson's concerns, and to see that as the default, I suppose, it's hard for me just at a global level to understand without that real finite calculation as to the value add of staffing, piecing these things out to mitigate any avoidable outside consulting fees.
Right. And what I look at is, does a project bring value to a community? And I think in this particular case, there's a barrier here with Veterans Parkway. It's not easy for folks to walk or bike north to south there without walking in the road. I think that pedestrian improvements and bicycle improvements enrich a community. That's why we're going for the grant, because there's an 80% share that the federal government would put in, and ours would be max 20%. If we didn't have that, I don't think we would do this project. So, and then just to give you a baseline, the piece that we ultimately will connect up to at Lincoln was last built in 2002. So we're 18 years later trying to finally extend the path. So it takes time.
Yeah. Well, certainly my question did not intend to imply any concern about the merits of your recommendation. I was just really interested in, when you were taking us through that journey, and you said at that one point, and then we'd have to retain a consultant. It's specifically that piece that piqued my curiosity.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah, and Sheila, I share your concern with that. It was a good point to call out. Where I do feel like it's a little harder to do a back of the envelope calculation with these, like I did with the houses, is, these are publicly, these are areas where the public is going to use it a lot, and it's not just dedicated for the sole benefit of just a small segment of the population. So that's where, with a subdivision road, if you're on a cul-de-sac, it's really only the 3 or 4 houses on that cul-de-sac that are going to be using it. Where, to me, I see, it's not like it can be worth unlimited amounts of money, right? There's a calculation there, but it's harder to quantify the public good here for a trail. And I, as someone who goes to State Farm Park quite a bit in usual summers, I enjoy the opportunity to be able to walk or bike there. So.
No, I totally understand. And again, no concern on the merit at all. The only thing that I was really looking to better understand is why we wouldn't be able to be self-reliant in answering the technical questions that we would need a consultant to be hired at that topped up add-on cost in order to do.
This is Justin. I'm excited about this opportunity to bring some federal dollars back and execute some of the priorities of the bicycle master plan. I think is long overdue, as was said earlier. And the veterans crossing is a serious issue. I'm excited to see that for safety reasons. And back to Craig's point, this is the type of thing that sets our community apart. So I'm ready to make a motion whenever the chair wishes to.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Justin. I think the only other comment I'd add was I thought the first or second slide made a good point that I think a lot of us use the Constitution Trail for recreation, but this is a transportation issue, as we've heard many times over the last couple of years, this last mile problem. And then I think we've repeatedly addressed the safety of Veterans Parkway. So again, this is an important project, and I think we'll figure out the costs and how to best use our federal dollars going forward. So thank you, Craig, for the presentation.
Thank you.
I did just want to ask on that point. I don't think it really affects the outcome, but just for the sake of being factual, this is state dollars, right? Or is it federal going to the state?
It's administered by the state, but it's federal dollars.
Okay, thank you. I missed that.
This is Justin. I'll make a motion that we, I'm trying to get my wording correctly, support the City of Bloomington IT EPA grant application for the extension of Constitution Trail and present that to the city. Okay.
I will second.
Okay. Okay.
Can we get a roll call, please?
Ms. Motney,
Yes.
Ms. McCann,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Krieger,
Yes.
Mr. Boyd,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberger,
Yes.
Mr. Stanczyk,
Yes.
and Chairperson Hayden.
Yes. All right, that motion carries. That finishes out our regular agenda. We don't have any old business. Does anybody have any new business? Happy anniversary, Justin.
Thank you. With that, I'll motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right. I'm going to do an all in favor.
Aye.
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 Cash this baby in.
Tyson. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.